I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexation. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Okay, we are kind of on the last bit of this year and the theme of perfection of wisdom. And I wanted to talk about projections. And this is something that is somewhat difficult to talk about and somewhat difficult to understand the idea of what projections are. And because it's even from the very first of the Mahayana Sutras that was used in China, the Lankavatara Sutra, it talks about projections. And next week, then we will talk about the Sheng Sutra and discuss projections there. And it's something very simple. If you Google the sutras and just say the name of the sutra and projections, it'll go right to whatever you're looking for. And what I wanted to do is show you this common ground that's there from the very beginning of what projections means. Projection is we talk about that everything appears as a projection in mind. This is a very interesting topic because it's not necessarily so easy to say what is this projection. I always use the example that if you were going to take a movie projector and project it up into the sky on a clear night, you would not be able to see a movie. It needs to have something to be reflected on. And it is mind that this projection is being projected on, and it's mind that is seeing it, and it is mind that is creating that projection that's on there. So when we look at it, we get to the idea as, well, there is this projection, so it must come from somewhere. And the only place it can come from is by mind. There can't be something outside of mind. And when we talk about that for some of the beginners that might be listening, mind is not something like your consciousness. Mind is everything. And we have to start from this viewpoint that everything's created by the mind. This is right view. And in terms of using right view is not something that is a viewpoint where there's a subject and an object. And I mentioned this many times, it's as if the body would know what's going on with its own body. It doesn't have to project anything because it is that. It is that the appearance on the mind. Hold on a second. Oops. He switched over to a different view. But I'll go back to my gallery view. Okay. So I can keep an eye on all of you. So in this way, we start with this, that all of this is mind. This is why we talk about ekayana. And a major turning point in Buddha doctrine was ekayana, just this mind. And so I wanted to kind of go to a little bit of the roots of that, where you can see it and get an idea of this. Next week, then we'll take a bigger jump into the Shurangama Sutra and go a little bit deeper into this idea of projection. This is difficult for us, and oftentimes when people are writing things in mind work, they write it from the idea that they understand ekayana as a samsaric doctrine, but they haven't realized it. So when they write, their writing betrays that lack of realization. And what happens is that one then hasn't penetrated to this realization that everything is mind. And so as they write, there appear to be some contradictions in what they write. And this is exactly why mind work is there, is for people to try out their understandings and try out how they explain things so that they have a chance to be able to go further. So those who are corrected should rejoice at being corrected, because that brings them a little bit closer. And if you look at all the people, and some of the people have been here for a long time, they've all kind of gone through this crucible of being presenting what their understanding is, and there's these little fine tunings. Sometimes it's big tunings, sometimes it's very fine tunings that are there. And so today we're going to go into this projection, and this is from chapter 24 of the Lankavatara Sutra. Again, this was an early Mahayana sutra in Chinese, and so it starts. Bodhisattvas should become adept at examining the two kinds of phenomena that have no self. So it says that we have to become adept at these two kinds of phenomena that don't have a self. And it says, well, what are those two kinds then? Neither beings, us, all of you, nor dharmas, nor phenomena have a self. This is important because we understand this one about that you don't exist and you don't exist and you're a dream, you're a phantom, you're smoke, whatever. But when it comes to us, we can't turn that finger to point at ourselves and say, we too are a phenomena. We too have no self. It doesn't make sense to us, because you say, well, I think, therefore I am. So as long as I'm thinking and therefore I am, I must exist. And this is what I use to process the studies. And the volume 1 or chapter 1 of the Sheng Sutra was Ananda trying to determine what mind was from the idea that he, as an independent mind, existed, even though he thought this mind was a collective mind. He really didn't understand that. And that's the place where you have to turn the corner. And it's really important. If one is practicing this way, when they sit to meditate, they're practicing erroneously, because they're there trying to get rid of self. But they can't get rid of self, because that is part of the self nature of mind. But then they don't understand that, and they say, well, how can that exist? But you're saying there's no self, so it doesn't exist. That is why it is said that it neither exists nor does not exist. And it is this way of reconciling which becomes difficult, because in the samsaric world, we want to try to prove things and prove this exists and this doesn't exist, and it's like people will say ghosts don't exist. I've never seen a ghost, therefore they don't exist, until you see one day. And I've known many people that all of a sudden saw a ghost, and then they're kind of like in the Wizard of Oz. I do believe in spooks. I do, because they saw them themselves, but they hadn't seen one before. So it's difficult to convince yourself about these things, but seeing that then helps you understand the samsaric world and all these different levels of the samsaric world. And what does it mean that beings have no self? The assemblage of the skandha, the dhatus, the skandhas being form, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness, the dhatus, the phenomena, the ayatanas, which is the sense organs and the sense realms, arise from ignorance, karma, and desire, and include neither a self nor anything that belongs to a self. So it's here setting forth the basic premise of Shakyamuni Buddha's first lesson, which was the 12 nidanas, that all these things come from ignorance. And from out of that ignorance, there's these desires, and ultimately all the way up through to birth and death. And so now we know, okay, this is what we're talking about, and saying these things that we think are self, they're all just part of this ignorance. As the grasping and attachment of such senses as the I to form give rise to consciousness, bodies, houses, world of objects that are perception of one's own mind are fabricated and manifested from one's own projection. So here they're telling you where this is coming from, and it's saying all of these things that from eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, and then you're saying of that all the way up to form, and so when all of these things they give rise to a consciousness, it's almost like a reference to the Yogacara school up through the seventh consciousness, and these skandha aggregate to create the illusion that there's something there. And so that's why it says it fabricates bodies, houses, world of objects that are perceptions of one's own mind. So it belongs to mind. It's a perception from one's own mind and manifested, and it appears from one's own projections. So it is the projections of mind that give rise to all the phenomena that you see. Everywhere, if you look around your house, everything here is just a projection in mind. It is nothing else, because it for sure is impermanent. We can't understand that because we are a projection. And so it is that we that are unable to talk about it. In the Shurangama Sutra, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but Manjushri is talking on behalf of the assembly, and he keeps talking about we. And the we is those who are confused. And so the confusion is because we look around and we see all of these projections, but we don't see ourselves. We see ourselves seeing the projections. And so it's kind of like a cartoon character escaping off of the celluloid and making a break for it. And they're saying, no, you're a projection. No, I'm not a projection. I'm here. I'm here in this room. I'm talking to you. Can't you see me? I don't see you. What do you mean you don't see me? You see, it's very clever. It's very clever because it manifests an appearance of a body to be able to certify and say, here's my birth certificate, here's my passport, here's my TSA, whatever, the known person account, whatever. It's showing you all these things to say, I exist. But here's all of the sutras, they all say the same thing, that you neither exist nor don't exist. You are a projection in mind. This is difficult for us to do. You've heard me talk about this many times, but you've got to turn that corner. When I say you have to turn the corner, what I mean is that the mind has to penetrate through this and penetrate so that it neither negates Gilbert or you, but it neither confirms it as well, because it just simply is part of mind. And this is what's important. That's why it says it's neither is nor isn't. That was the preciousness of Nagarjuna's two truths doctrine, this apparent reality and absolute reality, they are part of mind. They're inseparable from mind, but we understand projections are constantly being transient. They're changing all the time, impermanence. But the mind that enables to mold these and to truly perceive these appearances never has changed. It's never been born. It's always been there. This is difficult for us to do because, again, we've got to turn the corner to be able to get to that point. If we don't, then the treasuries of the sutras simply belong to those who have penetrated through. We hold them, but we have not made still good use of those sutras to penetrate through. So to most of you, what I'm saying makes sense. But it is the mind that has to awaken to this rather than just some kind of a book knowledge. And this is very difficult because we can stack up and stack up and stack up all these same understandings. I can show you ad infinitum the projections that are referenced in the treatises, projections that are referenced in the sutras, and you can access all of those. But it doesn't do you any good simply because of the fact that you haven't used them to penetrate through. They're only a book learning. You really don't know anything beyond that. It's not bad because it does help you become a better citizen of the world, and you do have the idea of wanting to find out the truth. But sometimes it's like Ananda in the Shurangama Sutra, an albatross around his neck, and that's from the old rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, where this one person, he had shot an albatross and he was condemned to be on the sea because it was bad luck to shoot an albatross at sea, and he had this dead albatross that he was dragging around. Sounds like who's dragging the dead albatross around, right? And so it is a curse at that point because we can't penetrate through to break through, even though it's there, it's right there. But the words and the phrases sometimes don't let us go through. We have to really make a great effort to what I'd call the right effort to be able to penetrate. So the effort is one that's a great effort, but it's like this. And I was talking to Li She, and she is mentioning, oh, that symbol's very, very powerful. And she was looking at it and going, wow, this symbol's really, really powerful, And I said, yeah, because it's the three jewels and somebody meditating. And she said, but this is mine here. This part is like the realization. Yeah. And I said, it's just lightly touching. So the effort is one. And for some reason, it was an entry for her that she really could go deep with. It's lightly touching. So this is like a person meditating, looking at the three jewels. And this is just so lightly holding on to the method. So it is this type of an effort that we use. It's the right effort. It's a continuous effort. But we don't squeeze the mind out of mind. And a lot of times we do that. We try to squeeze it out, or we try to squeeze thoughts out of our at our meditation. I don't want to think about anything. I haven't had a thought. That's all wrong. If you meditate like this, it is truly wrong. You're going to go backwards rather than forward with it. So we continue on. They change and disappear every moment, like a river or a seed, or a candle, or the wind, or a cloud, restless like a monkey, attracted to impurities like a fly. Can you imagine if you're a fly, what you would be attracted to? I don't even want to think about it. Okay. And and insatiable like a windblown fire. They move like a water wheel through life after life and bodily form after bodily form, impelled by habit energy without beginning, like figures produced some sort of a magic trick or a spell or a mechanical device. And again, all of these are analogies that have been used to talk about appearances and about ourself, in referring to it as a magically produced person or a mechanical puppet. And all of these types of metaphors, they only can take you so far. Actually, I'm writing an article right now talking about this very thing, about how many metaphors do you need to to get it right. It isn't in the metaphor; it is in your serious contemplation of the metaphor to really look at it and turn it in the right way. And what does it mean that the dharmas, the phenomena, have no self? So what does that mean, that they don't have any self? It means to be aware that the self-existence uh, of the skandha, the dhatus, the ayatanas, is imaginary. That the skandhas, dhatus, ayatanas are assemblages tied to desire and karma, and that they arise from the interplay of conditions, but are themselves passive, and that all dharmas are like this. This is really loaded with dharma here. It's because it's first talking about phenomena, all the appearances, and saying that they're imaginary. There's not a reality to them other than the fact that they're projections in mind, and that they are assemblages. They're assembled, gathered up by karma. And the karma here then is driven by this desire, a desire that we have, either a desire or an aversion. But all of this is ignorance that powers this. And it's interesting because when they say they arise from the interplay of conditions, but are themselves passive. They're passive. No, if I have something, just take any arbitrary thing, a, a marking pen, it, 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 it doesn't have a like or a dislike. It's passive. It just appears simply at this moment in accordance with causes and conditions to be presented to you as an example that it's passive. You in your brain, or what you think is your brain, because it's actually a projection over here, is moving all the things around that make this to be something good or something bad or something neutral. So then the Buddha's referring to the the person that's asking the question that in the Lankavatara Sutra, Mahamati, and he says, Mahamati, bodhisattvas should become adept at seeing no self in anything at all. So this is very similar to Hui Ning and what Hongren told him on the Diamond Sutra, that that the mind should arise where with no support, and in this way, mind is naturally arising, but we give rise to this mind where it's nowhere supported, meaning that it's not connected. We go, oh, I really like donuts. Well, do you think that's a supported thought or an unsupported thought? It would, it isn't in this way, because I would say I support that thought. And they'll say you'll support anything as long as you can eat a donut. But the thing is that it isn't necessarily in this way where we see things. We can see a donut and not give rise to anything from that. Then it's not supported. Even in the past, if it had been supported, now it does not have the same impact on us that it did before. Something very funny happened to me after my first retreat, and I was coming home, and I was at um, the JFK, at the airport, and as I was walking through the airport, there was all sorts of posters on the wall. Some of them were advertisements for perfume or for lipstick or for a travel somewhere or some juicy meal or some restaurant or whatever. And I noticed the difference that when I had come in, I was like looking at everything and seeing all of these things, and they, unbeknownst to me, were titillating my senses. But when I walked through after the retreat, there was a difference. They didn't titillate my senses anymore. I knew precisely what they were. They were advertisements that were designed to titillate the senses. But they did not have any support in my mind at that time, because my mind was much stiller than it was before I went to the retreat. And so it didn't have an impact on me. So it's very, very interesting in that way, because as we begin to see things, we see them clearly. We see them with common sense. Okay, so he says Bodhisattva should become adept at seeing no self in anything at all. Bodhisattvas who become adept at seeing no self in dharmas, in phenomena, soon gain an insight into the freedom from projections that characterize the initial stage of a bodhisattva, and that they delight in examining the characteristics of such awareness. So the first bhumi of a bodhisattva is one of this kind of a joy that and I see that with you all the time, especially people who are new, and they have this great joy because they begin to see this and they go, I get this. No, there's still at the first bhumi, there's plenty of work to do, but at least they're at this stage where they can see this. I remember when that happened to Robert. I don't know if he's here tonight, but it was clearly a great joy in his part, because it's like trying on glasses, for the first time, and all of a sudden seeing everything much clearer than you'd ever seen it before. And so when I see the people like that, there's a rejoicing for that because I know now they're on the Bodhisattva path. This is this is great cause for rejoice. Um, Bodhisattvas who become adept at seeing no self soon gain the insight, I think I read this, into the freedom from projections, and they reach the initial Bodhisattva stage. They delight in examining the characteristics of awareness. So they're very happy to be looking around and not be stirred by the surroundings. This is now chapter 30. We were in chapter 29. Thinking about beings in future ages, Mahamati asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, please tell us about the practices of realization whereby a bodhisattva become great practitioners. So he's saying, what are these realizations? How do we develop these practices to gain these realizations where a bodhisattva can become a great practitioner? To tell you the truth, that's all I teach. And I don't even teach that. I just show you that this is the way. And you have to do that. But that is exactly what why Shakyamuni appeared in this world, is to do that very thing. The Buddha told Mahamati, there are four practices, the mastery of which enables bodhisattvas to become great practitioners. And which four? And absolutely, really love reading this and love passing this on to you. When I say love, what I mean is because it's so helpful. It's so incredibly helpful in that. And one who has embarked on this path has the wisdom to know how deeply important it is, these practices. And so he says, which are the which of the four? Becoming adept. Adept means to becoming very well practiced in. So if you hear the word adept, if you're not that familiar with English, it means to be very practiced in distinguishing the perceptions of one's own mind. So the first thing is, so let's break that down. What that means, distinguishing the perceptions of one's own mind. See, you can't read a sutra and just read it and go, oh, okay, I get it. No, you got to slow down. You've got to back it up and go, okay, what does this mean? Distinguishing the perceptions of one's own mind. So the it is this turning the mind's eye inward to be able to see these perceptions, seeing the things that are arising, distinguishing them, seeing how they arise, when they arise in mind. And so it's very important for us to understand how things arise in mind and when they arise in our own mind, not in an unenlightened mind or an enlightened mind, just in mind itself. Second one, perceiving the non-existence of an external existence. This is really good stuff. Perceiving the non-existence of an external existence. This is very, very powerful. Why? Does anybody know why this is so powerful? 25 bonus points if anybody gets it. Think about this, contemplate this, because it's saying perceiving the non-existence of an external existence. What does that mean? We have to convert it into something that we understand. Okay, Sam, 25 if you get it, 25 whacks if you don't. So take your chance.
Thank you, Gilbert. So it's perceiving the non-existence of an external existence. And that is because there is nothing outside of mind. There's nothing that is not mind. So to perceive an existence external from this would be false. It would be an illusion or wrong view. So using mind's perception to realize that there is nothing that exists externally from mind because it's all mind.
Okay, that's close enough. I won't pick at you too much on that. So this is the most important aspect of this is the idea that there's nothing outside of mind. It is just simply mind itself, and that's what's important. So is that Alicia, Shelley?
Yes, you said perceiving the non-existent from the external
Existence.
existent. I think I don't know if I'm wrong also, but perceiving the non-existent basically is the impermanent in the external existence. So um, non-existent carry out as like impermanent. So
Yeah,
it's yeah.
it's close what you're saying. The thing is that as one sees perceiving the non-existence, that then anything that we see is seen as impermanent. So you're right about that. That impermanence is it's not separate from mind. So all it's saying is it's containing everything in mind. So you're looking at it and saying you're negating those things, um, and and it isn't necessarily a total negation. It's a negation that it exists, but not a negation that it doesn't exist as well, simply because it's just mind. So it's that's why I always draw the circle with the arrows pointing out and an infinity, because you can't say there's anything outside of mind. And so what's so important about this is that when we see things and that in this way, this it's all self-contained, and it's self-contained. What is that self-containment? The self-nature of mind. There's nothing outside of it. No matter how far you go, it cannot be outside of mind. So here in this Lankavatara Sutra, it's going so deep and into the basic foundations of Buddha Dharma, but it is really drilling far deep into it. So thank you both for your contributions. Um, so let's see. And then the third one, avoiding views of arising, um, avoiding views of arising duration, um, and then it just stops there. So, and then we'll talk about that in a moment. But it is not seeing things in the perception of the five skandha, but the perception of Avalokitesvara in the Heart Sutra. That we don't see things in that way. We see that whatever's arising is mind itself. And the fourth one is the realization of the Buddha knowledge. And so, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So, the realization of the Buddha knowledge is not a book learning. It is the gnosis of mind. Again, Gnosis. This intimate understanding of the intrinsic mind of how mind works. That this is the Buddha knowledge. That the Buddha knowledge has knowledge or gnosis of all that's contained within it, including all the phenomena. So it says these are the 4 practices, the mastery of which enables bodhisattvas to become great practitioners. And you really have to put these into practice. We'll talk about that a little bit. So it says, and how do bodhisattvas become adept at distinguishing perceptions of their own mind? They regard the 3 realms like this. So we have the desire realm, form realm, and no form realm, and as mere distinctions of the mind. So here they're saying mere distinctions of the mind. They're referring to, in some ways, the Yogacara school, because the Yogacara school was a very strong influencer in the language of the Lankavatara Sutra. And so here it's just saying mind only. Sometimes I'll say consciousness only, but I think consciousness seems to connote something different than mind only. So it says that their perceptions of the own mind, they regard mere distinctions of the mind, devoid of self or what belongs to self. And where it says belongs to self, Dao Xin in his treatise talked about that we have to reject the idea of any possessions or possessory notions, that we can't say, myself, my this, my whatever it is. It isn't in that way. Let's see, where are we at? As motionless and free from coming or going, the result of the habit energy of erroneous fabrications without beginning, and the various forms of phenomena of the 3 realms involving their body, their possessions, and the world around them as perceptions of those fabrications. This is how bodhisattvas become adept at distinguishing perceptions of their own mind. So when we see these perceptions, we know they're of our own mind. We don't see them as separate from us. We don't see, I have this, you have that, I want this, you can't have this. Whatever it isn't in this way. We see things just as they are, as they're appearing. These perceptions come from mind itself, generated from mind. And how do bodhisattvas become adept at perceiving the non-existence of an external existence? So how do we become good at practicing perceiving that there is not an external existence? They're not something separate and apart from this very mind. This mind that you're using right now is just mind. Apart from this, there's no other mind. There's no external mind. There's not something elevated higher than this mind. You've got it already. You've got it. All you have to do is practice with it. No, you already have the mind. It's not a participation trophy win. You've got it right now. You just have to understand that. That's what is so important about this particular practice, is seeing that just this mind is the Buddha mind. Since everything is a dream or a mirage, they regard the self-existence of everything that exists as a result of habit energy, of erroneous projections without beginning. So it sees everything that is arising. Now think about this. This is really, really pretty cool, because if you're seeing phenomena, you're seeing an erroneous projection. But it's in mind, but it's a projection. It's erroneous. It's arising by virtue of habit energy. So this kind of looking at things where they say become adept at perceiving the non-existence of the external existence means that you don't see things outside of mind. You don't perceive them that, why did this have to happen to me? What was happening here? Please, can't somebody help me? No, it's mine. You have to understand its causes and conditions, pratika samappada, that bring these things about. And pratika samappada is not other than the Buddha mind. So it's like going like this, it comes back again, and it's Buddha mind. There's no place other than Buddha mind that it goes to, nothing outside of Buddha mind. This is how Bodhisattva should become adept at perceiving the non-existence of external existence. And how do Bodhisattvas become adept at avoiding views of arising, duration, and cessation? So again, how do we become adept at avoiding views of arising, duration, and cessation? So something that's arising, we have that view, or it's been here for a long time, or it used to be there, but it's not there anymore. And so since whatever exists is like an illusion or a dream, and its existence does not arise from itself or from another or from a combination of both. Let's stop there for a moment, because they're saying when you're seeing phenomena, the phenomena doesn't come up by itself. For instance, if one is to see like the plant behind me, you go, wow, there's a plant there. The plant didn't feed itself. It didn't water itself. It didn't put itself and say, you know what, I would look good in this pot. It didn't do any of those things. There were causes, conditions that brought forth that plant is there. So we see things as they are, as the karmic forces and pratika samappada, cause and condition, never fail. We see them as arising in this way. And so, hold on. It's different because we don't see it as it had some separate power to be brought forth. It's brought forth in mind. You say, well, you brought forth in your mind. I didn't bring it forth in my mind. Our minds are not separate. It's all self-nature of the mind, irregardless of whether you're here or you're 10 parsecs on a different planet somewhere, in a distant galaxy. It doesn't matter. It's all connected. There's just mind. Think about this and think about how it makes sense. Otherwise, you can't bring forth anything that could be used to define existence. It cannot independently come into being. Think about that. It cannot be that way. It has to be connected with things to be brought forth and to do things. It cannot just spuriously appear like a flower in the sky. Okay. And so I think I still does not arise from itself, from another, or from a combination of both. It is, but is a distinction of one's own mind. They therefore see external existence as non-existence, consciousness as not arising, and conditions as not combining, but arising due to projections. Due to projections. And where are those projections? They're in mind itself. When they see that all internal and external dharmas in the three realms cannot be grasped and are devoid of self-existence, their views of arising cease. And once they know that the self-existence of everything is illusory, they attain the forbearance of non-arising. They know, hey, if I eat this donut tomorrow, I'm going to want to have another donut. I'm going to have another one after that. So I don't need that. Once they attain the forbearance of non-arising, they avoid views of arising, duration, and cessation. So we give rise to mind that's nowhere supported. Think about this. It doesn't mean that one becomes a zombie or an automaton. It actually gives you a clear choice via wisdom until such time that even the wisdom is gone and mind is just seen as complete. Once they attain the forbearance of non-arising, they avoid views of arising, duration, cessation. This is, looks like I lost a page here. Hold on. Let me see. I think that's about it of where I'm at for tonight because we're running out of time anyway. But I hope this gives you kind of an understanding of a little bit about projections. If you understand projections, you can understand mind. Because when you see that the projections are in mind, there's nothing outside of it, then that gives you the parameters to work from so that you're not approaching it in an erroneous way. And so when you're approaching it in an erroneous way, then it becomes an erroneous projection. And you're clinging to what's on the screen, not to seeing the totality of what I think the Tian Tai school said, the totality of consciousness. And the totality of consciousness is just mind itself. The Yogacarans called it mind only. So we see these in different ways. The Madhyamaka school was the two truths, the middle way. In between the two, it doesn't negate nor confirm either appearances or the absolute. There's nothing to confirm. There's nothing to be a one. It is just the suchness of things. That's why they use the term of tathatha gata, because that is a thusness, or tathatha agata, which is thus come one or thus gone one, and which they really mean the same thing. Okay, I'll leave it there and then open it up for questions. Thank you for listening. No questions tonight?
Gilbert, I have a question.
Okay.
Here, thank you, Michael, for typing this here in the chat about 4 practices. And the third one is avoiding views of arising, duration, and cessation. But what I think we have been practicing is to be aware of the arising duration and cessation, and not avoid.
It is. Let me go to the third one again. Avoiding views of arising duration, sensation. What this means is that we don't see anything in terms of duality that this has transpired, or this was a long time, this was a short time, this was this quality. There, any kind of a picking and choosing, that when we say we avoid it, is that we avoid engaging in thoughts that are supported by something, a picking and choosing. That's why the one Chan poem says the supreme way is not difficult at all, as long as one doesn't pick and choose. And so it's this not picking and choosing that does it. So this is a good moment. This is a bad moment. The moment we begin to move in this way, then we create this duality and a craving that we want this, but we don't want that. So it's consistent with what we've been studying.
So basically avoid labeling things. Or
Yes. Yeah, we still function, we still see things. We can still, as I mentioned before, you can still eat a strawberry, and you can enjoy a strawberry. You can be aware of its taste, the coolness, sourness, sweetness, the color of it, the texture, but when you finish it, you don't go like, where's the rest of them? You can enjoy that, If you're sick, you're sick. You're sick. And when you're sick, that's the way it is for that moment, but it's impermanent. No, you're either going to get over it, or at some point you're going to die, but it's still impermanent. I know it sounds kind of weird, but I mean, but that was something that when about, let's see, when was it? About 4 years ago, I was very seriously ill, and that's what kept me going, is understanding that it's impermanent. And so I was very ill. I had a great pain, but I didn't suffer from the pain. And so when we see that, because I wasn't giving rise to a mind that supported that, holding on the duration of that, how long I've been in pain, how long is it going to be? So you see, the difference is when we don't do that, we don't do this picking and choosing, then the mind is liberated already, because we choose the Buddha. And it's really important to see things in this way, that we have to see this. Choosing the Buddha is a very powerful lesson, because that lesson is saying that in this moment, I'm choosing not to engage in any kind of clinging to phenomena, or attaching to it, or creating vexations in the mind. We let go of that. We don't support that there. Okay. So
well,
it's a
can
good.
I ask you another question? So, for example, I'm meditating and I feel my leg pain, right? But I just be aware of the pain. I feel like my pain is still there, but after I'm like fully aware of it, it just, it's somehow the pain that, the perceiver and the being perceived, like kind of become one. It's, I don't, it's not so dualistic anymore. I don't know. Is there something wrong?
No, I mean, this is just a natural progression when we begin to practice, and you, although it's kind of like when there's a fire, right? There, in a building, what do? You pull the fire alarm, and so your body is pulling the pain alarm, and it's going, hey, you don't do this. Why are you crossing your legs for so long? This is the alarm telling you that you may experience discomfort from that. And then if you just let it go, you disengage the fire alarm, then it's okay. You will have the experience of pressure on your legs and some discomfort, but you will not experience the suffering that's
Right.
attached to it. So you've essentially disengaged that alarm. The alarm is the self. So once you disengage the self, then you can still sit, even though you have a leg pain. It's like me when I go to the lectures, and sometimes I'll lecture for an hour and a half or more, or things, and maybe 2 hours, and I don't have that most of the time too much of an experience of suffering from the pain. I do notice that my legs are hurting, but I just essentially defer that until I have time to uncross my legs. And I know I'm not going to die because of that, so you disengage that, and you don't give rise to supporting that experience of pain. So that's what happens to you, is that all of a sudden you realize that you've been able to neutralize that by not giving rise to any thoughts.
Yeah.
So that's why it works. It's very important for us to understand why things work, so that when we sit to meditate, we have faith in this, that it will work in this way. And that's probably one of the biggest hurdles to overcome, is to neutralize any kind of leg pain or scattered mind or drowsiness. That we understand that these things are natural, that they come up, but we can overcome them, and that essentially we just turn off the fire alarm on our legs. And so we have the experience of it, but it is the ego that makes it suffering. You see, it's that experience of a projection in mind that says, I don't like this. But if there's not an I there, then the body is just a body.
Yeah, just accept it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So you're on the right track. You're on the right track. That is an important hurdle to overcome, because then that means you understand this. Well, this is created by the mind. The fire alarm is created by the mind as well. So we just disengage it. We turn off the fire alarm. Okay, fine. Then we can continue on. We don't have fear to continue on. But people have fear when they cross their legs to meditate, because they don't know how long they're going to have this pain, or how horrible the pain is going to be. So is the pain that started 5 minutes ago really 100 times worse than it is now? But it seems that way, right? But it isn't in that way at all. It's just the amplification by the ego that makes it appear that way, because it is attaching to this, giving rise to these thoughts. So once you understand this, then anything that you encounter in this world, you can handle it.
Thank
so
you.
It's good. It's a good experience, and this is the practicality of what I was talking about in this. And again, don't be afraid of what we're talking about here, because this is just running you right directly into mind, and then seeing there's nothing external about it at all. Okay. Any other questions? You guys are going to let me off easy? Or maybe, okay, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, Gilbert. My question is about where in this projection picture to localize the self, the illusory self. So is it on the phenomenal sides, or on the appearing on the screen itself, or is it more to be localized in the content of what is being projected? Because it has a self has also a distorting aspect to it, that it can, in a sense, conjure up phenomena.
Yeah, it is. Your question is at the pivotal point. The ego wants it to fall into the samsaric side, so it could be understood, or discredited. Mind just sees it as mind, and so you're like right here. You want to fall this way. You want to fall towards the mind. You don't necessarily say, "Oh, everything is mind. Nothing else matters." But what you want to do is you want. When I say falling this way, means that use the perception of mind to see it. It neither is nor isn't. Okay, and so in that way, then it returns back to the middle way. But now, being in the middle way, it is the middle way of mind, not an illusory construct or conception of true reality. This is a trick. This is the part that's very, very dangerous for us, is that sometimes we can't really understand that aspect of it. We can't understand what that is, and we want to try to define it in samsara, but you have to let go. You have to fall towards mind itself. Falling towards mind itself, then again, it will come back to the middle way, but the middle way is the utilization of mind itself, not any kind of a clarification that still is a projection in mind. That cannot lead to a true realization. So it's, no matter what you do with that, it's going to be conceptual. So you want to stay away from that if at all possible. And so what you do is you have to contemplate this, and you contemplate this, and when you see this and you go, oh, then your answer will ring true. And because there's a moment where it sees through the appearances, and that's what's important. So you again go back to this to contemplate it from the mind side. It will work. I guarantee you, it'll work. You're there. I mean, you're really just right there, and it just takes a little bit more work on your part. But again, it's this kind of work, like just lightly touching. You don't muscle it at all. You just lightly touch it. The slightest that you use in this is extremely powerful. It's very, very powerful, and it's just a matter of redesigning the way that you perceive things. And I say you, I'm not referring to you as Michael, but as mind perceives things. So you fall into the mind side. Okay, doesn't mean you just forget about the projections. The projections are important because they're appearing in mind, and they're like a little stone in the shoe of the Buddha's sandal, and he wants to get resolved. Okay. Any other questions? Renee, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Gilbert, for a great teaching tonight. I have a question. So when we had a bad thought, should we recognize that it's just an illusion? And since it's already past, so we no longer pay attention to it? Or should we, even though we know that it's a illusion, we still repent and also raise our great vow?
We do all of those things. We do them in a selfless way. But part of my practice every night is to do repentance, and I really try to think about things that I've done recently that I need to repent about. And so we see that I become aware moment to moment. Am I doing something that I really should repent later on? Or did I just do something that I should repent? Or am I engaged in a conduct that I need to break off now because the self is appearing? And so this is our practice. That's why we're practitioners. So it's simultaneously happening all the time. Okay, all the time, no matter what's happening, it is just in this way where you're aware. That's the awareness of the mind. And so when you're aware of the mind, the reason that you have the idea that there's something there that maybe you should repent or whatever is because now you have tuned into that causes and conditions will create things out of whatever body, speech, and mind that you were engaged in that moment. So that's important when you see it. So every moment you're a practitioner, and every moment you incorporate this. And again, it is not in a way where we try to become a perfect person. What we do is we try to perfect the wisdom and abide by the wisdom, not trying to copy some ideal idea of what we think is a perfect person. We just simply use the wisdom to illuminate, and it's different. One of them is trying to work from the samsaric side and trying to go up, where the other one is like looking through that slit in the sky into the world and seeing things from that perception, and it changes things because in that way you already see, you allowing the wisdom to manifest. To even be able to have that kind of a perception in the world is great wisdom already. Okay, so you just keep maintaining that wisdom in the present moment. So it's good. You're right where you should be. Okay, it's a good question. Rong Chen.
Hi, Gilbert. Sorry, my video seems doesn't work. Amitabha. My dilemma is, until we reach Buddhahood, we have to practice sincerely. And if we have the notion of projection, they could be losing our faith. So actually, we have to treat human beings as real. We have to accumulate our virtues. We have actually to deliver sentient beings, by gaining wisdom. So this notion, I don't know how it helps us, so that I can use it when I'm in pain and suffering, but when I try to deliver sentient beings, I have to treat them as real. It's not a projection.
If you try to deliver sentient beings as real, where are they going to go?
Well, they go through the cycle.
What cycle is that?
Like what you are doing with us. You are so patient with us, and with unlimited efforts.
They're going through the spin cycle, because there's no place they can go. This mind that you have now is the Buddha mind. Apart from this mind, there's no other mind. This mind, Rongqing, that you're using to ask this question is the Buddha mind. Those sentient beings that are also the self-nature of mind. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings of self-nature. And so when we see it in this way, we see the projections, they're temporary. But that which is being utilized by individual or perceived individual sentient beings is not individual sentient beings. There's no self there. There's no self. We are delivering illusory sentient beings. Though there's not an individual. That's what the Diamond Sutra says. No ego, personality, life, or being. So this is very, very important when we see things in this way, that there isn't anything like that. It is turning the mind's eye inward to see that all those sentient beings, they're all part of the mind, and being part of the mind, they I'm trying to explain something that there's no ego there. So it's like you're digging in the garden, right? And now it's time for dinner. What do you do next? You wash your hands, right?
Yeah, eat dinner.
Yeah, you wash your hands, and then you can go into dinner. The Buddha's just washing the Buddha's hands. There's no reaching Buddhahood. You already have the Buddha mind. To reaching Buddhahood in this way is a concept from a Theravadan viewpoint. But in our Mahayana viewpoint, we don't see things in that way, although we understand, okay, we're not perfect Buddhas, but the mind that we use is not separate from the Buddha mind. It is the only thing that is the constant in all of this. And when we understand that, and then we understand that all appearances are created by the mind, that enables us to see things clearly. I'm very happy about talking about this, because this is the tricky part about Buddhism. This is the tricky part about Mahayana. People don't talk about these things. Why? I don't know whether they don't understand them, or it's easier to talk about polishing the roof tile. But when we see things in this way, then we get to where Song Ying is, where she's looking at things, or was it Renee? I think it was Renee, was looking at things and seeing how they're practicing. They're seeing that it's just this way. And so when we understand, we just practice mind. How do we practice mind? Is by perfecting the wisdom. When we perfect the wisdom, you already have it. My gosh, you're already the lotto winner, the big lotto winner. And so everybody is, even in the sutras, they talk about the stream winners, and if they had a lotto back then, they probably would have used a lotto winner, in terms of saying that you won by the very fact that you understand that this mind is the Buddha mind. It's the thing that turns everything around. But we cannot hear that and then continue to hold on to the mechanical puppet. So it is something that our ego will try to battle us back and say, well, this is what I heard. This is the way we should practice in this way. It quite to the contrary. We don't forsake sentient beings. In fact, we make a direct connection with sentient beings and how to deliver sentient beings. So it perfects our ability to transfer merit to others, to give blessings to others, because then we don't see things separate from ourselves. And so it enables us to reach out with infinite number of eyes, infinite number of hands, just with one heart to be able to touch everything. It's very amazing. This was Mahayana. This was the gift of Mahayana. It's very amazing. And so we proceed in this way to practice. It's easier to try to just polish the ego, but it is not as effective when we begin to harness our intrinsic power. Shan Han said, that we have to use our intrinsic power to develop power. Then it works right. And believe me, it is in this way. Our mind is incredibly powerful, incredibly. And so we have to use the power of our own power that we have now. Just in this lecture, there's a tremendous amount of power that's there. And it will go for generations. And this is the generation of a bodhisattva. It's beyond the idea of the samsaric realm. It defines what samsara is. It sees it not anything different than itself. The Buddha may look at his hand and see that there's a little bit of dirt underneath the fingernail because of being in the garden, and it will clean that fingernail. And where did the dirt go? It's created by the mind. It goes nowhere, but there will be a difference. It's very interesting. So hang in there, because next week we go even a little bit more deeper with the Sheng Sutra. And people want to get a little ahead of me, you can start with chapter 2. And so I'm going where oftentimes we leave off after chapter 1, and where Ananda still doesn't understand what's going on. But here we're talking about projections, and I want to kind of get you to see these things in that way. So any other questions? Or you have a follow-up? No? Okay. Anybody else? Last chance. We still have a little bit of time. Going. Okay. Well, okay, Renee came back. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I have one question. So yeah, today you talk about all project actually means they are all phenomena. So can we see like all phenomena are they are come and go, are rising and ceasing, but they actually without any meaning. So that's all meaning is something we add onto them, but themselves is no meaning. They just come and go, rising and ceasing. So
the difference is this, though, Renee, is that and that's what they were talking about, these the practices, is to understand that the causes and conditions, that these don't come and go on their own. Actually, I'm kind of getting ahead too, because the Sheng Sutra part was talking about that these things aren't spurious. They don't just come, arise and fall. That everything is connected, and there's nothing that is independent. So all of these things are connected. When we understand this way, we can let the things go. They come and go, come and go. A thought of a donut comes in, it goes. If we attach to it, then it clings on, and it's guaranteeing that it's going to come up another time and another time and another time, because you keep thinking about it, and that the more that you cling to things, then the more the ego is supported. When we don't give anything for the ego to be supported, the ego dries up, because we're not creating a fertile environment for the ego to be. And so when that happens, then the clarity of the mind is will become self-evident. It's so clear. This is what we call a clear light. So you always resting in the present moment. Just rest the mind. Don't give rise to these vexatious thoughts. And it's so easy in this world for us, because of the habitual tendencies, for us to have these kinds of vexatious thoughts coming up all the time. But the more that we let go of them, then the less they will come up. You'll see. And when less of them come up, when you study the Dharma is going to be much clearer. It is just hearing this and hearing this and hearing this, that you make it clear in your mind. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we'll pick this up next week, and I'm hoping to kind of build on what we were working on here, and I'll be putting out an article on mind work pretty soon. I almost have it done, but in any case, that's going to be coming up. I mean, again, that's kind of one of those all night lessons that I received recently. So we'll go from there. Okay, thank you all for attending. Practice well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you,
Bye.
Gilbert.
Thank you.
Next week.
Yeah, Michael, you
Thank
can
you.
stop.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you,
Okay.
Gilbert.
All right. There's Robert.